When a parent is away, children often take on new roles and responsibilities within the family. Re-entering a household where those dynamics have shifted can create tension and confusion. In this conversation, we'll discuss the unique challenges of reuniting with children after incarceration and how to rebuild those relationships. So now we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about navigating the changing dynamics with children in particular. And I think we should broaden the conversation and say, let's think about who we were parents to, right? It may be children, adopted or biological, but we may have been parents to others, right? Nieces and nephews, even family friends. So when a parent is away, when they're incarcerated, children oftentimes, either because they feel like they have to or they're told, take on new roles and responsibilities. Kenny, you've mentioned about your son, right? Sort of becoming the man of the house. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about re-entering and coming back from jail or prison, there can be some shifting dynamics because things have changed and there may be some tension, some confusion. And so we want to think about what the unique challenges are of reuniting with children after incarceration and how to rebuild those relationships. So you alluded to this earlier, but just thinking about what was the most difficult part of reconnecting with your children after being away for so long.
I mean, like you said, I could talk about it, a little. It's just, for me, like I said, the age change and the grown up part of who my son had become. Him and his mom had got closer, like I said, because physically I wasn't there. So that means monetarily I wasn't there anymore. So now he's taking, not only going to college, he's also picking up jobs to try to make sure him and his mom stay in places. And I learned while I was gone that they had lost a place and they was, pretty much homeless, staying wherever they could stay. So that in itself was pressure on him. And even with that happening, both looking back, even though they know where I'm at and I'm in prison, they're having some kind of resentment because now they're living a whole another difficult life because I'm gone and the money that I made is took out of the house. So, so when I came home and they said, once I got through the communication part of understanding that this wasn't a child, this was a young man. I mean, we had because he was my son and I was an athletic guy, I played college basketball and college baseball. He played college basketball. So we had a lot in common. So that's where we started from. We worked out together. So we started building our unit back together, me and him, just because sports started with us, going to the gym or watching boxing on TV or going to live boxing events. So that's where it started for me, was just giving myself the understanding and patience to accept who he had became, and then taking myself and inserting to who he had became. And as we come together, just building off of that. And today, me and my son have a beautiful relationship. I can honestly say my son is my best friend, because of that, that I did take the time to step back and understand that, for 3 years of his life, that was a rough 3 years because it was a transition. I wasn't there and went through some rough stuff. And okay, a lot of people, especially like he was saying, when you be selfish, you think, man, I'm in prison, man. I'm going through this and that and the third. Well, I'm going to eat every night. I'm going to have somewhere to sleep every night. I'm going to have somewhere to shower. It might not be the greatest place to do it, but they are not guaranteed that in the streets. And they had to deal with that without at that time, years ago, $50,000 to $60,000 a year I was making was just took away from them, So I had to understand that, I was in prison, but they also went through some hardships because of me going to prison. So that's kind of where I had to realize that and come back together with him and to start navigating from that point. Not trying to get back what I'd lost, but navigate from the point where we was at and coming back up. So that's kind of how I had to deal. One of my things I was dealing with.
So two things jump out as you're talking about that. And one we may not want to talk about because it's a big can of worms. But the first one, did they tell you right away that they had lost the place, or did they kind of keep that from you?
Kind of kept it from me.
Yeah. Sometimes families want to protect, right?
I just started listening and listening to, like, when I did make phone calls, because you got cell phones, so you ain't making calls to houses. So of course they can pick up the phone, but I kind of just started listening. And of course, he had went on a campus because he'd got a basketball scholarship. But then I would listen to his mom, and I'm here, stay here. Oh yeah, I'm over here tonight. Oh, so I just asked him because, you know, later on, and then asked her, and then yes, yeah, no, I don't have a place right now. So that's kind of how I figured that out.
Do you get a sense that they were trying to protect you from that because there wasn't anything you could do, or they didn't want to burden you, or?
It could have been a little bit of protecting me, but probably more or less of them trying to understand what I'm going to do, because like you said, they knew wasn't a lot I could do from that point. Where I was at was not a lot of help I could do. I couldn't wave a wand, and my paycheck started coming back in the house. So yeah.
So I'll open the can of worms. Relationship with your son's mother. So we know that sometimes caregivers are like, hey, we're ready to make this relationship work. Other times they're saying, whoa, we're not sure. I'm putting you on the spot.
No, you're fine. No, I'm comfortable. At that time, we had went through some stuff. I actually stopped calling at the front of my bid, as we call it, or going to prison. I got away, you know, I just stopped calling because it was so much frustration on her part, and some other things that took place, up to that led up to me getting incarcerated. So I just kind of took myself away from it. And then I called my son one day, and he said, hey, Mom has started asking about you and this, that, and the third. So we kind of slowly walked back in to a relationship. And that's difficult in itself because all I can do is talk and write. So it ain't a whole lot I can do to say, hey, things going to change or whatever. I mean, they hear that all, people hear that all the time. So yeah, it was rough, but over the years, you know, it got back decent. I will say they did come and see me. She made it a point to try to come and see me on a regular basis. My son did come and visit me. So it just took time. I think the shock of getting incarcerated, because I had never been in trouble before, so they hadn't seen me in and out of jail. This happened, and this particular crime carried a mandatory minimum, so I was going to prison. So the shock of actually like, wow, he's really going to prison. Once that got over, and then once I started doing my time, got over, it kind of flowed into okay, this is what it is now. And until the day I, walked out of prison, which that was a rough situation, because now you're coming back home. So you've had all these conversations, what's going to change and what's this and that. Now the reality of it is you're here. I'm in the house again. It's good while you're writing and talking and I love you and miss, but now when you come in, those old feelings of what you put them through, they come back to the forefront, because now I'm on the scene. I'm in the house. So now you go through that transition, which is rough. You know what I'm saying? And then, you got to think about it. I left making $50,000, $60,000. I came back home taking jobs, making $8.25 an hour. So now the money situation. So yes, they love your home and they wanted me home, but some of the things that I had and was doing for them, that it took time to get there again, which I eventually did, because I was always a person who was going to figure it out. But at the forefront of it, it was rough. It was very rough, financially, physically, spiritually, mentally. It was just a rough transition. But, it worked itself out eventually. And things got better. It wasn't perfect, but things got better just because I kind of knew what I had to do. I accepted that responsibility. Okay, I caused this rift. I got to fix this rift. And that's kind of how I approached it.
I'm not going to open the can of worms, but I do feel like at some point there should be a conversation about what if there is another person in the picture, right? So that Mom's got somebody else, right?
That's a true can of worms when you deal with prison.
So I'm not going to open it, but I want to put it out there that it's something
I didn't have to deal with that. So
but for some families,
now let me say I didn't come home to it. What was happening when I was away? Right. I'm a realistic person. I didn't have to come home to trying to deal with another man.
Right, but we do know that in some cases there's a new dad, maybe living in the home,
friend or whatever.
Right, whoever we define friend.
As the military used to say, Jody.
So again, can of worms not for today, but knowing that for some families that is a part of.
Yes, sir. That's a realistic part of it.
So.
Now, don't get me wrong, but I'm gonna say this right here. I feel like my daughter's mother causes all this right here, right? But I understand. I'm gonna tell you why I say that though. I'm gonna tell you why I say that. I don't want nobody to take it wrong, but I'm gonna tell you why I say that. She told my daughter's mother grew up without a father, right? So I think I told you this before, but she told my daughter that her real father was dead because I had a life sentence, and she didn't know I was gonna come home or not. So she didn't want my daughter to have the same fate that she had without growing up with a dad. So she gave her a dad, which was her boyfriend at the time. But a child gonna grow up and they're gonna realize that I don't look like him.
Right, they're gonna figure it out.
And that's what happened with my daughter. She said, hold up, I don't look like him. I don't look like none of the kids. But it made the situation difficult for me and my daughter because now she thinking, well, you didn't want me either? She already lied to me and told me that I ain't had no father, that he died. But now I'm sitting here in front of you and you telling me you my dad and you haven't been there for me all these years? But I told her I'm in prison. What can I actually do? So it made the transition and the situation that we had difficult for me. And I continuously tried to play dad, but I just couldn't be a dad because I have not been there for her. So, but I was trying everything in the world to push that dad thing on her. And she was like, hold up, give me some air a little bit. Like you would tell about your dad. Hold up, pipe it down a little bit. Let's try to, take this relationship real slow. And like I said earlier, when I went to Will about it, we talked about it. He said, you know what, she's right. Give her some breathing room a little bit. Let her think about what's going on. So when I did that, it made it more special. She understood exactly what I've been through and exactly what she'd been through. But you know what the sad thing about it? She had to grow up really by herself because her mother, don't get me wrong, her mother's a good mom, but she didn't know how to be a father and a mother. So it made it kind of difficult for my daughter without having a father, but just having a mother, and she can't, no one to really to protect her. But when we actually got the opportunity to sit down and talk about everything, and come to understanding, it made the relationship more better. When I was just trying to be a friend to her at first, and then come around to be the father, because I said, when she asked me something, she'd be like, tell me about this right here, Daddy. Should I do this or should I do that? And I'd be like, now, do you want me to say something? I'm gonna say if you want me to, because I know how angry she could get. But when I gave her space, and let her explain everything, and I asked her, look, I got some ideas. What you think about this? And then she'd go back and think about it. She'd be like, you know what? I appreciate that, Dad. And that made me feel good for her to call me Dad, because at first she wasn't calling me Dad. She was calling me by my name. And I had to take that because I left her out there when she was 6 months old. So now our relationship is great. I got a granddaughter. She got a daughter. She's taking care of. She's doing the best she can out there. And she's a good young lady.
So it's always concerning to me when kids don't know the truth. And that's not a dig against families. I mean, families make decisions at the time with the best information, but it sets up a whole series of things to follow, right? Where kids think, nobody wants me, right? I don't look like the rest. I'm being left out. I missed out on a whole piece of it. And then kids do find out, right? It doesn't take much to Google anyone and they can find out. And then there's questions about, why didn't you tell me the truth? But I also think about children who lose, like they lost, I don't know what your family is like, but she lost all of your family too, right? By saying you're not the dad, right? Your dad died. Right. As kids lose other people who could be supportive.
Right, and I think with my daughter, she kind of lost a family that she really didn't know too much about, but she gained a wonderful family with my family. I told my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, and all that. They didn't know who she was at first, but when I started bringing her around, and they, I had an aunt. She said, you know what? I always thought that girl was your daughter. She said, for some reason, I always knew that girl was your daughter. And I think that the way they embraced her, it made her feel good and gave her more confidence that, you know what, this is my family right here. Yeah. So but other than that, it was difficult at first. Ms. Radcliffe, it was real difficult at first. I'm talking about some crying days in prison where you just throw the cover on your head and just start crying because you don't want nobody else to see you crying in prison. So taking the walks around the yard because I'm hurting because I know that I left something out there that's so precious and so beautiful. They had to really take care of themselves. Because, it's hard for a woman sometimes without a father there to say, look, this is how you're supposed to be treated. Mm-hmm. And then when you go out there and you got guys, try to manipulate them, it makes things real hard and real, for that young lady. Right.
Yeah. And for you to feel like I couldn't be there to
I can't protect her.
To guide her or protect her.
I can't protect her.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you like to add? I know you've said that you weren't.
I don't
not a
have any
dad,
children.
But what you have some words of advice or what
being
you've heard.
around so many guys that are fathers, and some of them guys want to be the best fathers they could be from that place. I watch a lot of fathers realize that the only thing I could offer is advice, perspective, words of wisdom, and encouragement. And when the child rejects that, it's a deep pain. Because in prison, you realize that the things that you gave value to prior to going to prison, which were, if they were material things, they are valueless in prison. And when you sober up from your lifestyle prior to prison and you get clarity, you realize that value is in staying connected, giving insight, giving fatherly advice, being supportive. If the child rejects that, you feel like you're worthless. I've had fathers come, and I took laps around prison yards with fathers and say, hey, I don't understand from the perspective of a father, but I'll listen. And it's like, they won't even receive what I do have to offer. And because I know for sure that they're going down a hazardous road, I want to offer some advice. And they don't want that. And that's tough to watch a father spend many days hiding his face in his tears because the little he does have is not even received. And I've seen fathers react to that in this way. If it's all about money, if that's what makes the difference, I've seen fathers break the rules. I've seen fathers risk getting more time in prison to make some money and send home when they find out that their family is moving from place to place and can't pay a bill. Fathers that had no intention at all of doing that start doing other things just to send money home. Because if that's what's going to make the difference, then I'm going to risk my freedom to make the difference. And you always feel like you're being pulled in directions that you really don't want to go in.
A possible situation, right? I mean,
Double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
go ahead.
now, I know we're talking about the families, but before we get off that, you've been blessed. Well, you've really been blessed with a supportive mother. So what would you say to the mothers out there who's considering having their son return or another loved one return? What support helped you become as successful as you are?
Here's the nuts and bolts of my story. My first visit after I got sentenced to natural life, the first visit I had with my mother and my sister, I requested that visit because they used to come separately. And I asked them both to come. And when they came, I said to them, Mom, since you talked me out of wanting to commit suicide, which is something I wanted to do, I did not want to spend the rest of my life in prison. Since you talked me out of that, here's the deal for me. From now on, from this point on, if we're not going to use these visits as opportunities to be 100% honest with each other about the good, the bads, and the uglies, and to build each other up, don't come up here anymore. And that was more frightening to me than going to trial for first-degree murder, because that's the only support group I had. I'm not from North Carolina. All of my family is in New Jersey and Alabama and California. None of them are here. And that was so impactful. They rarely missed a visit because I challenged them and myself to connect in a way that was so necessary for my oxygen. Prison got so much BS in it. The last thing I wanted to do was to go spend 2 hours with some empty platitudes and some feel-good stories and some fantasy about if you just close your eyes long enough, you probably come home next week. That would have killed me. The reality was I had natural life in prison, And if we can't talk honestly about these things, as tough as they are, stop coming up here. I refuse to be superficial. I refuse to play any kind of game with anybody about anything. So if you come up here and a topic get thrown across the table, we get ready to gut it out, clean it out, and be totally honest with it. And that nurtured me and them in a way where anything less than that is subpar, where we don't want it. And that realness carried me in a way that I couldn't carry myself when I was doing that time. So every time I left visit, it was a reciprocity. We were giving each other something. The visits were something that they yearned to come to because they wasn't getting that realness outside of my visit, nor was I getting it outside of my visit. So it became a back and forth, a reciprocation of energy that they were needing to carry them from visit to visit, because they were going through their own thing. They loved me, so a part of them was in prison as well. They were figuring out how life was going to go without me there, while I was figuring out how life was going to go without them in my life. So we kind of carried each other. We gave each other a lot of grace. We had our spats, but we showed back up like family's supposed to do. When I got released from prison, that was because that was being nurtured while I was inside. It was a continuum when I got released. And it's an unbroken rapport that we have with each other no matter where we go. So, and I would bring that back to people and tell them that's how I'm making it, man. That's the only way I'm going to make it, because I got a long stretch. And you got to have that tough conversation with your daughter. You have to do it because you suffocating, man. They can't do the time for you. And you have to carry your weight. So you got to have that conversation with your son. You do. And you can't hold your breath until a visit come, because that might never come. You got to use all your resources to get that out of you, be it in a letter. And here's the fear. If I get that real, they might not call back. They might not write back. They might not come up here anymore. And that's tough. And I say, hey, look at my example. I did it. Because in reality, right now, all we have is each other if they never come back up here. So I would always challenge my friends, who I consider my brothers, to take that step. And slowly but surely, I watch them do it. And they're thankful for it, because I could speak for these guys. They won't settle for less. We don't settle for less with each other. As we say, we got to keep it 100. All the time. And that don't mean we're right. That don't mean we figured it out. That means that we brought some mess into the family dynamic as well. And we got to really unpack that, because you can't clean the wound out and disinfect it without getting all of that stuff out of there, man. You can't, man. And I say this to myself all the time. I did too much time to get out of prison and be superficial with anything I do. I refuse to do it. I was faking it all the way in prison, and let me explain. I had to pretend that when they called count, I wanted to stand by my bunk, and I did not. I pretended for 25 years that I had to stand by my bunk. I had to make my bed up. I had to do my chores for all that time. I had to hold it in, and when I got out, I said, wow, I would never pretend another minute of my life with nobody else, because I don't have to no more.
And I have to wonder if that's part of the reentry conversation that we don't talk about. I don't know which one of you said earlier, and I was thinking that for many of us in the community, we base what we know about prison on, right, what we see on TV or online or the movies, right, which is not true. And so I feel like part of the reentry conversation might be educating families about count, right? And that you were forced for 25 years to pretend that that's where you wanted to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
And how that may look different than what they saw on TV last night.
Can I share a story with you? I was out on a community volunteer pass with a friend. She soon passed away. And when you get these passes, you get a chance to wear civilian clothes. You come out of your prison uniform, and as long as I was away, prison clothes are sized. Must be made in China, because the sizes don't match with American-made sizes. You don't know that. So I was on my passes. I went to a store to try on different clothes, and I went in the dressing room. And first, I had 2 or 3 pair of pants in the dressing room.
Then I'm trying them on, and Shirley, she's such a dear friend. She said, how do they fit? I say, these are a little too big, these are a little too small. So before I could get that out, my 3 more pairs draped over the dressing room door, and I'm trying them on. Then I just had a traumatic moment. I put my pants back on, and I had all these pants, about 9 pair of pants over my arm, and I said, here you go. I'm not trying on another pair of pants. I'm done. And she said, wow, what happened? I said, I'm done and I'm ready to go. When I got in the car with Shirley, we were silent for about 15 minutes. She said, if I said something or did something, I'm very sorry. I said, Shirley, it's not you. I said, at any time in prison, they tell you to strip search. They tell you, take your pants off, bend over, cough. You ain't take them off fast enough. Let's do that again. I said, while you were bringing me these pants to try on, I had a moment. And I said to myself, man, I'm not taking my clothes off for nobody no more. She said, I didn't know. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I would have never known that. So what I want to say to families, it could be a Thanksgiving dinner. The food is delicious. I might want to take my plate and go into a room in the house and eat all by myself. But to the family, it's like, what's wrong? What did we do? Did somebody say something? I don't want to be bothered at this moment. I'm having a moment. And if I don't articulate that to the family, is it fair for me to hold that against them? How would they know? So we teach each other through peer support, through mentorship, how important it is to develop the language for how you feel so you could articulate it, because they won't know. And they'll think somebody must have said something. He didn't. No, that's not it. We just had those moments.
And I'm thinking about an 8-year-old who's in a fight at the dinner table at Thanksgiving with his younger sister, right? As 8-year-olds will fight with their younger. And you decide, I need to be away, right? I'm an 8-year-old, and I assume it's because I did something, right? Because we haven't had the conversation about, hey, there might be some times where dad just needs a little bit of space. We're good.
There you go.
Keep fighting with your sister, right? Right? But we don't, and now we've got all these expectations that get all messed up because you don't have the language. I don't know how to explain. Kid thinks it's their fault.
It's
and
their
now
fault.
suddenly that delicious Thanksgiving
Right.
dinner is a disaster because we haven't thought and planned and prepared ourselves ahead of time.
And you know what? To add on to what he was saying, it's funny because I can remember before me and my wife was married, and when I went to the house, and she opened the door, she said, "Okay, this is the TV, this the microwave over there, the refrigerator right there, the couch right there, all this stuff right." And I said, "Ho. Just give me a little space," you know what I'm saying? She was like, why you say that? I said, because when you were in prison, when you got all these people coming around you, telling you to do this, telling you to do that, it just do something to you. I said, you didn't do nothing wrong, but just give me a little space. And then when she left, went somewhere, she came back, I was in there watching TV like it was okay. But you just need space sometimes. There's just so much going on. You know, you got, like sometimes I like to be in the store sometimes, because you got people that's going on everywhere. And it throws you off a little bit. You know what I mean? It just has you in another space, another place. Mentally, sometimes, you know, you just be somewhere else. So you just, you know, when someone's coming home, you know, you can't just be telling them to do this or do that, come over here, go over there. You can't just do that. You know, so I can understand exactly what he's saying.
Yeah. And I think we need to prepare and spend a little more time thinking.
But you got to explain that to your family member.
Right.
You know, you got to explain it to them because, like you said, an 8-year-old kid would be like, "What's wrong? What happened to dad? Why he's acting like that?
Yeah.
Did I do something wrong?"
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the best thing you do is just explain it to them. Let them know that, you know, it's nothing you did. I done did 30 years in prison. I come out here and everybody just trying to just throw everything at me at one time. It's not going to work.
And maybe having those conversations earlier, right? As opposed to in the moment where you're like, remote TV, microwave, couch, right? As opposed to maybe having that conversation like, hey, when I come home, this is what I think I'm going to need, right? I'm going to need some physical space, some emotional space, some time to figure out, and what is that going to look like for us as a family?
I know a lot of people think that, oh, well, Junior's coming home, Will's coming home, let's have a big party.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that the intention is beautiful, but the individual is overwhelmed. See, if you don't have a sense of self, you think something is wrong with you. I know so many guys that go to gatherings, never have drank alcohol in their life. But if somebody tosses them a beer at a gathering, a game, they're going to drink that beer because they're so self-conscious about where they've been. I want to seem normal. So if whatever is commonly done in a certain space, I will participate because I want to seem normal. I don't want my difference to be associated with the fact that I've been in prison. Please don't say that's why I'm different. Please don't say that the time I go to rest and the time I get up in the morning is because I'm institutionalized. Please don't say that because I don't want to go to sporting events or have a nightlife is because I'm institutionalized. If I can't handle that stigma, I'm going to be a total different person and I'm going to do all those things just to fit in. And I think we put so much emphasis on prison when a lot of these things are commonplace to teenagers when they first go to high school. They want to be cliquish. They want to fit in with somebody. So the boys assimilate with certain groups of boys because they want to be a part of something. Prison has the same type of dynamic. Before you get out of prison, people tell you if you don't figure out something to do to opiate yourself, you're going to go crazy because you got a life sentence. You can't do it sober. You better smoke this reefer. You better drink this wine. You better gamble. You better get some kind of curriculum, some kind of extracurricular to pass your time. Because trying to just do it with a clear head, it's not going to work. Look at that old guy over there. He's on so much medication because he tried to do that. He lost his mind. So what you want to do? You better pick a hobby. And it's a few hobbies. They're not savory. All of them are unsavory, but you better pick one to do your time because you can't do it the way that you want to do it. It don't work. Even some staff tell you that. Even some staff find you suspicious nature if you don't indulge. Mm-hmm. Because how you mean to tell me you could do your time without smoking? You never had a dirty urine in 25 years? I gotta watch you because nobody do 25 years without getting high. Because this place won't allow that. You hear that so much, you get out of prison, there's a certain culture and a subculture to how you party, to how you go to gatherings, cookouts, right? Lounges, you're supposed to drink. It's almost automatic. They just pop a drink and slide it to you and you don't drink it, man, what's wrong with you? That place messed you up, man. Look, everybody at least drink one time. If you don't have a sense of self or the strength of character to really study you, man, you'll be doing everything that everybody says you should do. And you're going to pretend like you like it. And when you get by yourself, you in a room with the lights out saying, man, who am I? I'm lost in the sauce. I don't know which way to go. It goes back to my conversation with my family at my first visit when my mother and my sister came. If we can't keep it totally honest with each other, then we're going to drift so far apart, we're not even going to recognize each other. And I didn't want to do that. And I won't do that because I got to know me if I don't know anybody else. And prison doesn't, as isolating, as solitude of a place it is, it doesn't give you a chance you got to fight to get to know you because everything is out external. You got to fight to get to know yourself, man, because the external things around you are always encroaching. When you feel like you're having a silent moment, here comes some foolishness. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here comes some food. It's like the gravitational pull of that place says the last thing I want you to do is get to know thyself. I want you to learn another language. I want you to learn how to do all kind of other fancy stuff. But if you take the time to get you to know you, we're going to wake you up out of that.